Deep below Butcher Jones' meat shop, the adventuring party found a coffin slightly open, and a hole in the wall leading to a sacrificial altar, and then the necromancer's lair. What had the butcher been putting in the meat pies?
Hello guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Thank you for tuning in to the War in Christmas Village channel. My name is Joe, the Chaotic Crafter, and on today's episode, I'm going to show you how to make these really cool, gridless, three-dimensional dungeon tiles for dungeons and for your D&D game. These also make great terrain for Ghost Archipelago, Warhammer. They're neat, they're modular, they're made out of the XPS, the insulation XPS foam. I use the seafoam green, the blue, or the green, whatever color you see. I believe that you see that color. You could also use the pink if you want. Part 2 is all about how to paint them.
Here's a close-up shot of what we're going to paint today. You can see I've got some nice texture going and some highlights, so let's get started. So after allowing my terrain to dry overnight, everything's nice and hard and attached. All the pieces are attached. So then I brought in my primer, this gray, flat gray matte primer, and I wanted to get the sides because I want the sides to look like chiseled stone, almost as if this has been like cut out of the material plane and then all your pieces are put on it. So I made sure to get the sides, and then I also hit the top where the bevel, where we made the bevel, because I figured that would be looking cool if that was chip stone. My thought plan was to do brown on the top, like some browns, and then the gray on the sides. I thought about doing all grayscale, but I have a lot of gray terrain already, and it's getting really kind of boring and just gray. So been wanting to incorporate some other colored things. I play a lot of Frostgrave, and it's kind of dreary and snow, so I thought, well, it's time to do some other colors to that. So then the next step was adding this brown, this dark brown, and I did that on the outer edges. This will dry darker than it is appearing right now. And then the next step was to do a medium brown, but I forgot to show that footage. So I did go and get a can so you can see it. So here's the color scheme so far. I've got a dark brown, a medium brown, and a flat gray. This is my base coat or an underpainting. So I put them in the sun, and they're mostly dry. This dark brown is a little sticky, this stuff right here, but nothing's coming off on my hands other than the gray that's already on there. So I'm going to start painting and see how that goes. Now, keep in mind, I'm going to do everything to all three pieces. So even if I don't like something, I'm going to have to do it to all of them to make sure it matches. And the game plan is to do a lighter and then gradient out dark, and then just change this color a little bit and maybe add some dry brushing and such. But I think they're coming along pretty good. Now I did, if you don't want to do this, I'm going to think of doing another tutorial on a quick cheat way of making these without all the texture, but it'll get the same look. But that'll be another video. Here are the colors I'm going to use for my piece, and I just want to go over a little bit about painting. This applies to all sorts of styles of painting, for instance makeup, as well as painting your terrain. Try and use 3 different colors. Go from darks, get some darks, some mediums, and some lights. As you can see here, I've got more than 3 because I'm not really sure how these are going to turn out, and I want to make sure it looks decent. But here are my darks, my mediums, and my lights. Now you only need 3. Actually, I'm gonna toss in this here too, because I'm definitely gonna use some white, and I'm also definitely gonna use some of this black wash. So I guess I should put these colors in here as well. But here we go. This may change because I really don't know what I'm doing as far as where I'm gonna go with this. I'm just gonna play around and see what happens. So come along for the journey if you'd like. Here's the brush that I'm going to start off with. It's my worn in, it's got a bit of some stiff bristles. I like it a lot for using all sorts of stuff, and I believe this might have come from an art store, so it might be a decent quality brush, which is why I probably had it so long. But I use all the range from inexpensive to expensive brushes and everything in between. And the first thing I'm going to do, since I have these all kind of mapped out and primed, is I'm going to go from darks to lights. So for my dark, I think I'm going to try melted chocolate, or I might want to go cocoa bean.
which I used on my other tutorial. This was a good buy. I got this for $1.79 on clearance, and you got 8 ounces of this great paint. I like the acrylic paints because they dry quicker, and they're also water soluble, which is nice. So let's get started and see what happens. Oh yeah, I forgot, this paint's really thick, so it's gonna need some watering down. Trying to figure out where to put this stuff. Here we go. So remember, whatever I do to one of these, I'm gonna have to do to all of them. So I want to try and preserve some of the original underpainting. And let's see what happens. Yeah, that's how much brush I have. Okay, so as you can see, I'm just dabbing. Let me try my left hand so you can see better, I think. So I'm just taking this and just dabbing this around, and here I'm leaving it go from dark to medium to lighter. That's the concept. See how easy that is? Just bap, 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 bap. It'd be a very nice little meditation if you really do enjoy it. Okay, now these colors might change a little bit when they dry. So right here I have extra paint, so I'm just picking that paint up, and then I'm going to tap it over here where I need some more. Pick up the extra paint, pick up the extra paint, and dab it over here. Dab, 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 dab. Sorry, that was my right hand again. Let me go back to my left hand. Dab, 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 dab. There we go, we're starting to take some shape. Now I'm going to do the other ones too, and I'm going to do the other ones as well, and we'll get to it. It's quite a lot of paint, so I'm just going to disperse it first before I dab. So as you see, I'm just kind of dispersing that extra paint, because otherwise if I don't, it'll all be globbed up in a little area. Okay, see if I hold it up here. Maybe this will help. Okay, there we go. So now that the paint has kind of been dispersed a little bit, it's time to do the dabbing. I'll switch to my left hand again because I think it's better for the camera if I do it left-handed. Okay, so that paint's getting a little dried out a little bit, so I'm going to dip in here, which has a little bit of water. And then what I like to do is tap out my brush just to make sure I don't have too much. Okay, so that's a little bit of water on there, so this is going to make it easier to spread. See how it's easier, how it's picking that color back up, spreading it around a little bit. That's exactly what I want. So once again, I'll switch to my left hand over here. Guess I'll just do the right side with my right hand, and my left hand will do the left side, so you guys can all see which side paints better. I'm kind of right-handed dominant, but I know how to use both my hands pretty well. So I'm kind of ambi, almost 100% ambidextrous, I guess. Oh, here we go. Duh, hello, genius. I can just rotate the terrain. Get it done. There we go. Okay, so now that the paint is thinned out a little bit, I'm going to start moving it towards the center a little more. Like this. I guess it helps if I get this in the frame. Okay, so we're going to see if I can squeeze off any more paint from here. Oh, wait, I can swipe. I'll swipe that up. So I just snatch that paint. I'll just reuse all that up. You know, this area over here looks a little rough to me, so I'm just gonna try and blend this out a little bit. Then here is where I'm going to take and do these kind of motions to kind of push the color around now. Let's see if I can do it on this side so you can see better. So now what I'm doing is kind of dragging the paint out a little bit now that I've dabbed it on. So I'm going to dip over in some water again. Now I can push the brush and see that there's still some color in there. That's good. So, put that over there. Then I'm going to brush with that water. Dab and brush. Dab and brush. Get those colors all blended beautifully. Keep in mind, this is going to change a little bit when it darkens. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at so far. Put a little more water on the brush, dab it down, and do the same over here. Now remember, everything you do, you have to do to all the pieces, even if it's a mistake. That's if you want them to match. If you don't want them to match, well, then whatever. That means that if you make a mistake, you have to make the mistake on both sides and then clean it up. Fix it on both sides. Oh, see that rock came off? That's gonna happen, it's okay. So there we go. I'm gonna let that dry and then we'll come back to it and you can see how the colors change a little bit and you can see how that gradient effect is gonna look. Ta-da, look at that. I think it's looking pretty good. So I'm gonna finish up the rest. Here we go, pieces all painted with the first layer of brown. They all have a nice cohesive look to them. So you can tell they're a set. That way when the tiles are next to each other, it'll work. So all the pieces are starting to match, go together. I think that'll look acceptable for my players. Let's try the columns. Looking good, looking good. For my next color, I think I'm gonna try this actually no, I'm not gonna do this one. Hold up, I'm gonna do this one, which is the medium, it's in a medium brown. Perfect. Let's see what this does. And we'll just do this. See how that starts. See how that's starting to look. Okay. That slight change right there. So I think I like that. So let's go ahead and do that to all the corners. So I'm going to dip a little water because I want to spread that around a little bit. And once again, you can see over here on the left, I dab that out. And just bring this through here. Spread this around a little bit. Kind of merge and blend everything. And keep in mind, this is going to change colors. It will change colors when it dries. Starting to get some nice gradation going. We're got a little depth of field going from darks to lights, except for this piece right there. So let's do the next one. Whoops. Better be careful with that hand because that could end up all over my terrain. There we go. So I'm just going to do this outer layer with all that paint and just start spreading that in. I dip in a little more paint, tap it out over here on that already wet water, and then that's going to help spread stuff. I have an oopsie right here. That's not too bad, it'll be fine. Dip in a little more paint, come over to that spot of water is, because why not? It's there, why not use it, right? Okay. So what I'm doing now that I've applied the paint is I'm spreading it around. I want it to be kind of thin, and then since this is textured, I want to get everything, and I also don't want really, I mean, brush strokes aren't going to show because I'm going to take care of that and blend it out. But there are a couple ways you can blend out like this, and see how that blends out down at the bottom right there, that twirly motion. And then I also want to, you could also dab, that's another way to blend out. And then to make sure I get all the paint from all sides, because this is kind of that grit does create a three-dimensionality to it on a small level. So I also want to make sure I get all sides of the rock kind of painted. So we'll do this kind of motion as well. Just back and forth. It's kind of this motion all over in every direction. Whoops, sorry about that. And then to blend out, see how I'm kind of pushing, going like this. I'm taking the brush and I'm going this direction. Get a little more paint, so I just dabbed a little tiny bit on there. Dab it out. I'll come back to that as needed, and let's see what happens. I do fill in these spots. They're looking kind of bare. Starting to look good. Now keep in mind this color is going to change when it dries. So there's a little heavy spot right there. I want to try and blend that out. See that right there and that right there. Fix that a little bit. And there we go, Linda. Looking good, Linda. Here we can compare and contrast the two. This one's had a chance to dry. See, it's looking a little different. Wet and dry. Let's get this one. Now, if you want to leave it at this, you could. This is perfectly acceptable in my opinion, because you have your gray edge, which, I mean, we need to highlight and stuff, but you have a gray edge, you have your dark, you have your medium, and you have a lighter. So this is perfectly fine the way it is. Just FYI. All right, so we're back, and this, oh, no, it's not dry. Not really dry enough. Let's see if this one's dry enough. Yeah, that one's dry enough. We'll experiment on this one with our next color. Yep. Try the pinky. Okay. Yep, dry enough. Dry enough. Okay. So we're gonna experiment on this piece. Oops. Progress so far. They all are kind of looking the same. I'm not really liking this one. This one might need a little more work, but all the rest are looking pretty much the same. Like I said, I could have left them the way they were and they'd have been fine. So the next color we're gonna do is this territorial beige, and we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna go real light, almost like, you know, I'm kind of tempted to dry brush this. Let's try that and see what happens. So for my dry brush, I'm gonna use this Royal Teclon or whatever, and we'll see if the dry brush would be a better concept. It might not be. Or almost dry brush. I am gonna say, I don't know if I necessarily want to do that dry brush. I don't know if it's really working it. So, you can see I'm not putting much paint on there. What I'm just trying to do is lighten up a little bit, real subtle. So maybe it's a little heavier than a dry brush. I think that's looking pretty good. I'll go with that. And once again, I am going in all different directions. Doing very little paint on the brush. I'm just dabbing it in, and then I am going like this. I'll do it on the black so you can see how much paint's coming off. And then coming in with my dry brush. Just kind of lightening up the things. Bringing in, introducing a new color, a new layer of color to the eye. And then I am also going over this kind of orangish, reddish, not really orangish, but this red in the middle. And I'm hitting everything that is not gray. And if I hit the gray, it's okay. There you go. Do a side by side. The differences in colors is very, very subtle. Very, very subtle. Before is with this area, and then this is after the dry brush. I think this is really good to see on the same piece. It really does make all the work that we did yesterday pop on that. Okay, so I'm gonna do the rest of this off camera because this clip's already 6 minutes. Also, I want to listen to some Susie Sue and Bjork and fun stuff while I work, and I can't do that while I'm filming. So I hope everybody can see the differences, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm finished. And here we go. Here's a picture of all the pieces done. You can see kind of goes like this. Yeah, it looks kind of cool. I thought about lightening these up. Originally my design was to have this be lighter and this be darker, but I kind of fell in love with this color that happened. So I think I'm gonna leave them like the way they are. Just go from there. I'm not really fond of this towel, but whatever. There you go. There's the big one. So the next step is to do some dry brushing here, some highlights, and I think I'm just gonna stick with the white. So the next thing I did was come along here and tap this with some white, some of this pure white with the dry brush. So it's the same old technique that I did for all the other pieces. Just get your brush, get some paint on there, but you don't want a whole lot of paint. That's actually too much. Like I've said in other videos, I tend to go heavy-handed with my dry brush. Now I'm not doing this will have 3 colors, but I didn't add any more gray to this because the sides really aren't the feature. I wanted the attention and the detail to be focused on the center part, but we can see how that's starting to take shape, looking like carved stone. Do a compare here, you can see better here, compare and contrast. So these two are about the same size, so we'll do, just adds a nice little pop to it. And leaving it at the sides, and then remember, this gets a black wash, so things are gonna get a little darker after this. So if you wanna watch, just go ahead and leave the camera rolling for a little bit. So, and there we go. Get a little more paint on there. Let's see, where can you guys see what I'm doing? Okay, there you go. So here I'm tapping off that paint, tap, 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 tap. Here's another thing I like to do to see how much paint's on there. Let's put on my skin. But that just takes those corners and really makes stuff start to pop. And once again, I go in all directions for this. I do want to hit these in an upward in an upward stroke. Let's get a little more paint on it. That is way too much paint, Linda. This is not the paint by numbers with the line, Linda. Okay. That still might be a little too much paint, so we'll just do it down here. So on the edges here, I like to go, whoops, on the edges here, just good thing I can use both my hands kind of. So with the edges, I just like to go with an upward motion. Like that. And then in these spots, to hit this, the striation, I think that's what it's called with rock, striation. You hit those like that. It really does make that sucker pop out. It's a little heavy right there. So I'm gonna try this trick I did before with the towel. This may be too late for this spot, because it may be dry already. I had acrylic dries pretty fast. So there you go. I'm gonna continue doing this off screen because it's faster. I'm gonna continue doing this off screen because it's faster, and I get to listen to Susie Sue in the process. With all the pieces painted up, looking good on the sides. Ta-da, ta-da, ta-da. I did notice on the small one, there was a section where I didn't put much texture, like right there, but it's okay. It'll have to do. And I'm gonna set the camera up and play around a little bit. Put these columns there. Next, we're going to do the black wash, which I actually forgot about until after I videoed a little segment, so stay tuned for that. So here we are. Everything has dried overnight, and as you can see, I think it's a little dark because of that dark wash. And I think I need to do a little more of some highlights and things. So I'm gonna do dry brushing and then possibly hit this again too. Before and after. This one has some highlights here, but not here. So this is before and after, and I'm still using the same old ivory from the apple barrel. So a little side by side. Really makes this pop. And here's everything with the ivory color highlights, which is quite white, which is kind of what I was hoping for. Made sure to get all these little corners here because that really looks like chipped rock. And I ended up using this big old brush. It's like a hardware store brush because my fancy brush was getting chewed up by the texture. So there you go. Here's me standing up. There's some lines here I'm just not really fond of, but whatever. I'll live. C'est la vie.
I went back in with this barn red from the apple barrel and did a little bit of detailing to break up the brush strokes from the ivory highlights. Thank you for watching the Warren Christmas Village crafting channel. Please hit the like and subscribe button and tune to the notification bell. Thanks and have a great day.